Marketing in an AI apocalypse isn't just it's not just a metaphor anymore. It is a new reality for a whole lot of creatives who are navigating a world that is being transformed by AI, remote work, and a ton of digital noise. So I asked the founder of Sherwood Fellows, Marcellino D'Ambrosio, to sit down with me. I'm Dominic, founder of Saga brand, and we want to talk about what it takes to stay human in a tech saturated world. So we're going to sit down together and unpack why traditional agency models are breaking down, how AI is reshaping everything from branding to education, and why trust, not tools, is becoming the backbone of modern business. So, this, I think, is a candid look at the frontline challenges facing creators today. And if you want to skip the conversation, just get the notes, have a look in the description. You can get the link right now. Whether you're an early stage founder or a burned out artist, this episode offers a raw, real, and maybe a redemptive vision of creative work that can last. Like I commented on LinkedIn, I am 100% jealous of the fact that you got first to the table with Sherwood when we're both nuts about Robin Hood as like a hero who goes out to save people. He's been, ever since I was a kid, my favorite character. And now I can't do it because, yeah, you beat us to it. But you've got this, it's fair to say it's a pretty successful Catholic marketing branding agency, successful enough to where you're still doing it full time. You got a small team, I think, working for you. And you just mentioned 2023, you went full time doing it. You're still doing it. And so here's my question for you, is where I want to go with this conversation. You said something interesting. Agencies need to start to be reimagined. Two, remote work post pandemic is a bit of a new beast. And there's AI just like everywhere you turn. There's a massive question. How are you starting to make sense of a post pandemic world with remote work? Let's just start with that one there. What's different? What are you doing that's different?
Well, Sherwood really started in 2015, and we were always remote. So I don't actually even remember. I've never had a formally go to the office job. I was a life teen youth minister, and then started a marketing agency that was remote. So zero in office experience. So 2020 did absolutely nothing to change that. I just kept acting like everything was normal as best as I could. But I think that moment in time accelerated a lot of trends that were already taking place, namely, kind of like connection to the global talent pool through things like Upwork and designs. That was also the advent of, I think, cold as a tool. Like, data enrichment had gotten good enough for people to begin doing cold email. So that also was an accelerant. In addition to that, Meta and Google both started to be a lot more expensive in terms of like how ads got run. And so I think that during the initial sort of golden age of digital, like, you could basically market anything very cheaply to almost anyone, and then they shut down like lots of different targeting options, and it once again became the playing field of the big dogs. So I think there's a lot that has been going on there. Another thing that came out of COVID, I think, is people, because they were staying at home, like the side hustle trend grew tremendously. And a part of that trend, I think, was like the grind set bros, people like Alex Hormozy. And a lot of what those guys were doing was like kind of turbo productized services and technology. So in marketing, I think what people are expecting now is, almost like a SaaS offer. Like, I'm going to subscribe to your service and I'm going to get these very specific outcomes that you're guaranteeing me, which anybody who's actually worked in marketing realizes the absolute impossibility of meeting that kind of expectation, unfortunately, unless, I don't know. I mean, there's very rare circumstances where you can literally take a playbook and run that same playbook for every kind of imaginable sort of other category or other competitor. So you might be able to do that for roofing companies at like a certain pay range, maybe. But then you get into the local municipality rules, different neighborhoods, different laws. Insurance deals with things in different states differently. Like, all of that stuff is just to act like you're going to be able to copy paste a service across an entire industry at once is really not realistic for the most part. But that's, I think, like that has informed the expectations that people have. And then, like now AI has been coming out for the last few years, and everyone is getting inundated with these messages like, fire your creative team, Hollywood is over.
It's
And
so over.
it's so stupid. I mean,
Yeah, it
the
is.
only people making great stuff with AI are people who were making great stuff not with AI before.
It's true.
So, like,
Yep.
I think that that's something that, yeah, like any tool, it makes it easier, absolutely. But like, you see it if you actually do get into it, start playing around with it, you realize like, okay, this took me 12 hours to make a poster, and my time is probably not worth that. I should have probably hired that out anyway, like,
Hmm.
and it's not even that different from what everybody else is doing. So anyway, it's just, I think that it's an exciting time to be alive. Like, we're at the advent of the printing press, essentially, like our version of the printing press. So like lots of opportunities,
Say
lots of
more about
change.
that. I really want to
Yeah.
understand like how you as an agency owner are seeing, yeah, lots of change, lots of stupid, lots of potential. How are you
Yeah.
processing that?
Well, one thing that we are doing, that I think is like likely what every agency is trying to do, is like we're training our own chat GBTs to output, or at least get 50% of the way on aspects of our process. We do a lot of brand positioning, brand manifesto writing. So being able to train our own proprietary chatbots that can help us to do that is like, eventually we could maybe like string those together into something that could, um, with a little bit of support from us, be an offer that we could make that would be a really cheap offer. And even despite that, like we used to charge like $20,000 for strategy sprints back in like 2019. The output that we're able to get for like 5,000 now is like maybe not comparable exactly, but it's like close enough that, so things have gotten a lot cheaper, which is kind of frustrating. Like, honestly, I'd rather have $20,000 projects, but we're able to serve like a much like earlier stage or kind of organization, which personally, as a Sherwood Fellowian, like, I like that. I want to work with the small guys, not the big guys, when I can. So I don't
Imagine
know
it
if that
allows you to.
answers.
No, it's good. It's all good. I imagine. So, okay, it becomes cheaper, like you just said, but then at the same time, I imagine you can also now afford to onboard new clients. I imagine an upside then is because you're getting involved in their game earlier, you're a trusted partner for a lot longer.
Maybe. Yeah. I mean, I think that still has to be played out. Maybe. That's part of what I'm hoping is the case. But yeah, being at the advent of the printing press, I mean, that was like a more practical answer. I think a more like global answer is that, dude, I have no idea. How could people before the printing press have anticipated what the world would look like, 10, 20 years later? But the Protestant Reformation, the Enlightenment, all came out of really a change of consciousness. Like, the way that people understood the world began to change based on like
Access.
literacy.
Yeah.
People started using metaphors about the world differently. Like, uh, I can't, I'm trying to blank here on like exactly what those are, but when we talk about like being plugged in, right? Like, that is a metaphor that comes out of the digital age. That's a different consciousness and different way of understanding the world and reality that would not have been available to someone 100 years ago. So I think that like there is a change of consciousness happening at the same time. That's like much broader than just technological disruption.
I think you're absolutely right. I'm going to pull on this thread for a second because I like the metaphor of the printing press and all that's very apt and accurate. The thing with the printing press, though, is that it continued to be accessible only to a relatively elite few who could actually still read and then understand what they were reading and perhaps discuss with others. And books continued to still be insanely expensive. So the average, rank and file still had no interest in whatever was in a book anyway. Father would tell me what I need to know, or homegrown university, snothead will come back from Rouen or wherever and sort of educate us. Whereas today, this has now gone from like, PhD level access of insights into things and current news and stuff is now available at a tap to any average human being almost. So if we're talking about how access, not just to information, but access to things that can, well, I mean, information is power. That there's an element to that is true. What am I trying to ask here? It's like access changed so much back then. What happens now? Maybe what are some things you're afraid of as you're looking at this? Because there's fears and then there's pros and cons to everything, and I'm always curious what other people think. As you're looking at this and you're thinking rank and file, which is that's a demeaning way to talk about it. I take that back. I shouldn't say that. Normal human beings like you and I, who do not I don't know, maybe you do. I don't have a 12-year master's doctorate degree and like whatever. I can outsource that to a half-stoned sycophant, AI to tell me things that, make me feel good about myself and then challenge me to think deeper about whatever.
Yeah.
I swear I'm trying not to lead the question or bury the lead, but I don't know. It's
Here's
an
one thing
interesting
I'm
mess.
scared of. I think that like the thing about a book is that part of let's look at the Protestant Reformation, for example, and then the Enlightenment. Both of these things are driven by a very like concrete consciousness. It's like now we can read solo scriptura. Like the book is basically God in a way. The book is the word of God completely and totally. We don't need anything else. That's it. And then beyond that, like science, which has a lot to do with kind of slow processing, reading, analyzing, categorizing, that is sort of the modern religion that we currently practice, even though we don't seem to act like it is. I think that what happens with ChatGPT is like there's something spiritual to it. It's like when people are uploading their entire life trauma dump and getting spiritual and psychological insights about themselves, that is basically like there's something like prayer that's going on there. I'm concerned about what that does to the soul. Like we don't actually know what's in the box. This is not like it's not God. It shouldn't be worshipped like God. It should not be treated as a rational, loving, merciful, kind, values-oriented entity. What could it do? And what could it do both unguided, like just how ChatGPT has been trained and what it's been trained on, sort of like the amalgam of the internet, which I don't know, I would want to like kind of like
I didn't even want to go to Reddit.
Yeah, exactly. Like entrust my soul to that. Like maybe some client content, sure, but like my soul, or also like how it has been trained intentionally to mislead. Or so, for instance, there are like quotes that I was just doing some research on the Crusades, and there are literal quotes from like Muslims saying things like, "We will drink the blood of Christians," and it's just crazy stuff like that. It's like this is the ancient world. It was pretty effed up, but for whatever reason, like ChatGPT will not, no matter what you do, admit that Islam has a intense warrior ethos that has been violent at times. Like it just won't admit that. So like there are these blind spots that you can just randomly run into if you're aware and really like your stuff, you can call it out. But if you don't, like you're just going to believe whatever it says. And those things have been trained into it. That's like that kind of blind spot is something that's like, hey ChatGPT, here's additional prompting and things that you need to know about like how you should respond to these kinds of questions. So I think that both of those things, both the like trained and untrained aspects of ChatGPT on like kind of the human spirit and entrusting your soul to it for guidance, that's something I'm really nervous about.
100% agree. Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah. Chat works. Where does it work really well as it's a bit like a magician's wand where you're like, take this idea and alakazam, spit it back in a better polished form really fast. Instead of me spending 6 hours, it can take 6 seconds. Like Okay, that's 6 hours of my life I got back. That's really valuable. And it's good when you know what you're talking about and you can correct it. But I've run into this constantly, and I think you're absolutely right. When you ask it for information you straight up don't know, and then you don't get into any of the sources, you're blind to whatever its parameters are, and so that is a flaw, a failing. Yeah. Good things though. What are some interesting things that you are looking forward to, perhaps what this kind of access now brings to, I mean, frankly, school kids and grandparents and, us in business and so on. What are some of the things that you do like seeing?
I think that our ability to research has increased tremendously, that's awesome. Like, I think an upgrade from searching a term in Google and getting like 10 listicles made by
And a whole
some
bunch
random
of black
Indian,
hat slop.
like
Yeah.
it's like, thank God we got to hop over that crap. Like, I mean, the internet, I think, Google had largely become unusable by the time, I mean, by last year when ChatGPT really started to take the place of search. It was just like, God, dude, every single thing that you search, it's just like
Ads and
clickbait listicles. So I think that like our ability to actually use the internet to research and ping the broad base of human knowledge is incredible. Like, I in the last year, I've studied a lot of anthropology and sociology
yeah.
and history, just kind of in my free time because I'm interested in those things, and being able to like I wouldn't have had any idea where to even start without like asking, hey, what are some of the most like kind of premier anthropological works, and then starting to read those and then being like, okay, summarize these, right? What anyway, so like I feel like, I mean, I'm not necessarily saying I have like a master's degree level understanding of anthropology, but certainly like it took me from knowing nothing to knowing a lot more than your average person in a very short amount of time. So that's good. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I'm so intrigued by how education, not just in business, but just education at all, is going to be transformed. I saw a clip that I think was making the rounds where a teacher was going, what do you do with all the kids crafting AI reports and just turning them in and not actually doing any of the work? And she's like, okay, that's great. Everybody's done that. I think if we were honest, kids wouldn't remember anything past a test anyway. And they all
Yeah.
hated writing those articles anyway. So fine, have them do the AI thing, have them do the research, have them generate the flashcards and read through it and try to ace their tests, and then have them sit down like in a circle or in groups and have them defend their thesis and actually do the one thing you cannot outsource, which is
Yeah.
the actual conversation around a topic. And just that, I mean, I'm just hearing, oh, that sounds like Plato, right? Or Aristotle gathering his dudes around, let's go for a walk, hedge school ethos here. I think this is a positive disruption to how education's done, because if you have a system of education that kills a love of learning, that's a problem. And I think the same thing with business. This is sort of the next sort of question here. We've got this rise of entrepreneurs and startups, and there's this rise of the creator economy that's now happening. And I don't know, up until the last couple of years, it's been soul-suckingly horrible to get in it, stay in it, last beyond the first year, beyond the first 5 years. This is one thing I'm excited about, is how AI is able to help eliminate a lot of the tedium that nobody ever asked to do or has signed up for, to allow you to stick around longer. What do you think about some of that?
Yeah. Yeah, I think that, like, for instance, becoming a content creator or like starting a podcast, we all know that things like this right here that we're doing, like, this is long form. People are going to engage with it. Some people are going to engage with it, but like most people want the 30-second sound bites. So how do you get that? Well, 2 years ago, you had to listen to the whole thing. You had to cut it up. Yeah, that's the tedious, just kind of soul sucking, mind numbing BS, like listening to the same podcast 10 times. That now you can use AI to like speed warp that process. So I think that's definitely going to allow people to get in the game and stay in it that don't have the resources to hire hire out, um, that kind of tedious work. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm also very interested in things like, for example, accounting, right? Or payroll and all of this stuff. And I'm seeing an increase in they're AI generated, which means they're more contextually aware. They're smarter about being able to navigate details, how they can, well, you can outsource larger and larger parts of your startup or of your business. And you could do this anyway, but it used to be, still is in many ways, cost prohibitive. And then you're having to outsource to people like, I remember the first time that I hired a guy from Fiverr. I wanted help to optimize my website because I knew it wasn't very fast and it was WordPress and I was still just beginning. So I paid the guy like $5, $10 to get in there. Within 20 minutes, I don't know what the heck this guy did. He unhooked my admin from the front end and destroyed the site. And there was no way for me to log back in ever. And I completely lost. That was my first freelancer website. I needed that thing. At least I thought I did. I survived without it. And then his instant response was, "Look, I'm so sorry. Let me refund you completely." I didn't know that was a trap. "Let me refund you completely and I will work with you to get it fixed." As soon as I said, "Okay, fine. It sounds like great customer service," he refunded me completely. And according to Fiverr's terms of service or something, you can't leave a review if you get 100% refund.
Oh.
And then he ghosted me right after that. And that was such a learning experience about bad customer service, bad everything. So I've never hired someone from Fiverr since, which is probably another failure. But the sense that you can now get access to tools that are programmed, to either act in your best interests and you can vet that or test that or argue with it and stuff, or get help hiring or finding the right kind of people at an affordable rate, maybe from around the world. Like that kind of thing, I think is not only really interesting, but allowing especially creators to stay in the game.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that like the outsourcing thing is what I think is actually really one of the big outputs of our current digital age is, well, the breakdown of trust. Like, you cannot have a relationship, a trust-based relationship with someone across the sea with like who is just another face in the millions of people who are also like trying to do the same thing. Like that level of anonymity is actually a really big problem for
If
really
you're trying to
accountability of
depend your
any kind.
business, exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
So I think that like yeah, a much better model is like a, a smaller group of people who have a high amount of trust with each other, who have tools that they can use to like push their leverage their time more effectively versus I think the like going to a bunch of random people for one-offs that have zero interest in your business or your success, like and have zero accountability. So like yeah, I think that's the tools thing is I think a much better way forward.
Yeah. What are you seeing in terms of the creator economy? And I think you've been involved with like, well, Catholic Creatives is one group that I think you've been involved in. And what's your read on post-pandemic shifts or sort of changes with people
Yeah.
doing
Well,
stuff?
this is not going to be a very like hopeful
Let's get
conversation,
into it.
honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that basically like while the internet was in its infancy and like this is always the case. I think at the beginning of any new technological disruption or political disruption, there's going to be a phase where there's going to be a lot of fluctuation and chaos, and some of that's going to be really good and some of that's going to be really bad. And then eventually people are going to figure out what works, and bigger organizations are going to get like that sort of the staple organizations are going to become anchor points. And it's going to be harder for the younger or earlier stage people to compete in that, and so on and so forth. And I think that's happened. So like I think that now there are structures that we know that work that are like kind of easy to hack, and there are organizations that have a ton of money that know exactly how to hack that. And those organizations have relationships with Meta and Google and whatever platforms. And so, like, the codification of things, I think that has happened. So, if you're like a new content creator and you want to build a new Instagram or build a new X account or whatever, like, it is going to be way harder to do that today than it was 5, 10 years ago because of how the algorithms work and like how the competition is sort of getting sliced up. So I think that like what that means in the new attention economy is that patronage is now critical. And so like you need to have people that you cultivate relationships with that have audiences, that have resources, can share, boost, like, and unfortunately, I don't think that most people in the older generations really see that or are interested in that. I think there's a lot of like, well, you
Interested
should
in
just be able to
patronage, you mean?
yeah. Um, but I think that's something that we can at least all do for each other, which is like, you know, collaborating, like you asking me to be on. You're not a huge voice, I'm not a huge voice, but like we can help boost each other. And so I think that like collaboration is like that's absolutely vital. Collaboration, relationship, building hopefully like patronage relationships, that's key. So anyway, that's what I see happening.
It's good. Okay. So as you said, not a very happy conversation. So how do you go to sleep at night? Like, what is the thing that gives you hope, like maybe an edge, that maybe if we play this line out, there's a way forward?
Yeah.
And maybe you just answered that already.
Yeah, I think that a lot of creatives um, are going to have to do the hard work of tilling a pathway that just hurts and is uncomfortable and painful, and maybe you don't get to see all the fruits of that. But
Well, that sounds
I
like an
think,
average Tuesday anyway, but could you
right?
unpack that a little bit? Like, what do you mean?
I think where we are is like, I think there's a generational, how do I say this? Like, I think that if you have faith and you have a longer perspective than just your own life, your work can be a sacrifice for others. That's I think the way to see it. So like maybe I don't get the leg up that I would have liked and would have like made my career a rocket ship, but like I'm getting to do that for people on the Sherwood team now who like I can tap and say, "Hey, you are really talented and people aren't seeing that. I want to empower you and bring you up and like give you a platform." And so I see it as a gift of self and also as like I don't know, like the more that I do that and the more that other people like you do that, we will build our own coalitions and our own nodes in the network, I think. But yeah, I think that like there's got to be collective action, empowerment, relationship. I don't think going it alone is really a reasonable way. Just on the, like, hey, I'm just going to like make the best coolest content. Like nobody gives a shit. Your product does not matter unless you have audience. So like how do we get audience through relationship, sharing, building and like being open, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Being able to stand out on your own on the back of excellent content. I mean, it's obviously a dream, but it means being the Michael Jordan of whatever you're doing to earn that level of attention if you're trying to compete your way to success.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I had a question. I forgot what it was, but I'm curious what you think about. So we're talking about creatives and creativity, and you're in marketing and you're also in branding. And I think these are some skills that few creatives want to slow down and learn
Hmm.
because it's a whole new skill set. It's a whole new side of your brain. I mean, I still will not look at algorithm. What do you call it? Audience data sets and stuff. I probably should be really good at it, but I can't stand it because I'm more the right side of the brain, whatever. I'll let somebody else be the data nerd and tell me. But it's tough to do. And so it is a skills that does have to be learned. So here's where my question's going. I think that it's been a temptation we've had for a long time, but it's the problem of commodifying creativity. And that's kind of why I think AI has been such a disruptor. It's because anytime you can commodify anything, somebody will come along, create a tool, they'll just do it faster, better. It's like that cartoon or the story of what is the name of that? The legend of the black guy pounding a hole through a mountain with two hammers to try to beat the steam engine or something. I can't remember. I just remember watching the cartoon as a kid or something. Anyway, it's now been resurfacing a lot. People going, look at the nobility of the man sticking it to the machine. And I'm like, dude, just don't. Like,
Yeah.
okay, I understand there's a bit of a power dynamic going on with the context of the time, but You can't apply that to today in the same way. Learn to use the tool, save your humanity. There's no point in killing yourself to prove a point.
Yeah.
That doesn't actually need to be made anymore. I don't know. I understand it's messy. And I understand that, especially when you're talking about your creative output. It's a very personal, sensitive thing, especially when you're building a life living around it. But at the same time, I think we confuse creative output with perhaps creative genius.
Hmm.
What do you think about that?
Creative genius. Yeah, I think that like I've had clients hire members of my team, which is a big no-no. It's
You mean hire them like outside of a contract
yeah,
with the whole team? Okay.
yeah. They'll like go to my designer and that worked on the project, and they'll like ask if they can do something on the side with them. And, like every time I see the output, and it's never even close to as good as what would come out of the full engagement with us. And I think the reason for that is that creative genius is not like what they're cutting out is the creative genius that's sort of influencing, impacting the project. It's not just a skill set that you're hiring when you hire a team like ours. So, yeah, I think that it's really just a matter of like who has the taste to see that, you know? I think people will always look for a cheaper, easier, faster way of getting something done. And now it's like you could just get all of this done for almost zero, or the cost of like a few $1,000s of AI tools. But that's not going to make your work great. It's not going to make it stunning, eye stopping. Like, it's just going
Well,
to
not
be
even
there.
that. It's also because you don't know what you don't know, you're going to get a ton of confirmation bias. You're
Yeah,
not dealing with somebody like an actual person. See, this is where humans are playing 5D chess all the time compared to an AI that's maybe 1D, which is
yeah,
really, really good and insanely fast. And it can, deep research anybody out of a job. But humans are still playing on a completely different playing field when it comes to, it's like, this is the funny thing, like AI can't intuit somebody's attitude behind their response and why they chose those words.
yeah,
I don't know, maybe once you start working cameras into things and audio haptic feedback, maybe, but I still think that there is a qualitative difference to how humans perceive communication from another person. And honestly, and this is where I have hope for the future with no matter how much AI is developed, I think humans will, after we get past the stupid honeymoon phase of like, hey, everything can be free, and like, we'll quickly get back to realizing I don't want a tool. I genuinely want another person, maybe whose tool amplified to speed up their feedback, but I genuinely want a human to be able to interface with me and, literally interface
yeah.
with me. Darn, I had another question. I totally forgot about it. Where do you think you're going? As you've mentioned, stuff has changed over the last couple of years. You're a little bit um, trying to navigate new pricing structures. You're building a high trust team. There's that awareness of and creativity that can never truly be outsourced. All of that stuff as you're looking into next couple of years. Um, what are you thinking for the future of Sherwood?
Man, that's a really big question. One that I don't know if I have the answer to. I think that I'm still trying to wrestle with all of the change, understand it, understand how to use it, what it means for us. I think that, yeah, I mean, I've got a lot of different ideas that still have yet to be played out. One thing that I said, like, we are doing that has been really interesting is like we're offering a very, very low priced consulting package for early stage founders that we just never could have done. There was just too much there's just too much work that would go into the human like production of one of our strategy decks. And now we can say like, hey, we're going to help you, founder, leverage our tools and our process to with some feedback to get there. And it's not going to be necessarily as good as what we would make. It's still going to be very obviously made by ChatGPT, but like it's way better than having nothing. As an early stage creator and having to wait until you're at like 500K in revenue to hire a team like mine. It's like you can be at a few thousand revenue and hire us to do something. And that will probably turn into more program, like the cohort based type of coaching courses, tools that we implement within that community. I think that that's something that like will come as we gain credibility and get better at delivering and like kind of testing this process out. But like that's one thing. Another thing that I'd really like to see is I think that I don't know. Yeah, I mean this one is very unproven, but like I think that services, marketing as a service, is no longer going to be really a thing. I think that marketing as a partnership can be. Like, I don't think that many people are going to understand the value of what we do. I would much rather, if I had enough money, I'd rather be able to pick what clients we work with and take a portion of their equity or take revenue in them as a like hey, I believe in what we do. I know it works, especially over time. I really like to be able to do that. Like, I don't know, buy a freaking like laundromat company and make it like the dopest brand of all time and like market it like it's like nobody in these small businesses does that. So and they're never going to be like, I'll pay you like $5,000 a month to like do marketing. They just don't get it. But like, what if I was like, hey, give me like 20% equity and I'm going to grow this thing like crazy, but you have to let me do everything.
Kind of admit, I do like the idea of that model.
Yeah.
It not only makes a lot of sense, puts the risk on us, you and me as the specialists, and it does absolutely mean that we have to know our stuff and know our processes and know the tools that will allow us to do it quickly and win, so that we actually generate profit out of that revenue share or whatever. Um, I love the accountability of that can happen though, because how many times um, yeah, the complaints, right? The horror stories of people hiring marketing specialists or agencies or whatever, and they get nothing, and they just get smoke blown up their what's its, and it's not. They never get what they actually pay for, and they're just that. I think is for me that's the big enemy. That's the one that I'm going up against is all the people who have been burned so badly that they're not even sure they believe that any marketing is ever going to be any good. And whereas I'm like, it's one of the best things ever. It can be amazing, but I think you're right. I think a marketer, if you're going to hire them, not they need to be an embedded marketer, but they've got to be. It's got to be personal. They've got to actually take it seriously and want to be a part of your brand, and that's one awesome way to sort of guarantee a high trust environment.
Yeah, and it's also like marketing, there's no way to de-risk it. Like it is the place in your business where there is risk. It is investment, not expense.
Mm-hmm.
So like I think that a more honoring view of that would be an equity or rev share. The only problem is like as an agency, you need to have a lot of margin and revenue to be able to afford to do that because people have to get paid. Like I don't have a team of people who are going to be like, yeah, I'll get paid in like 3 years when we have an exit, like, so, um, I haven't been able to figure out how to make that happen. Eventually we'd
Yeah.
probably have to raise money.
Well, it sounds like
So
one answer to that would be you couldn't take, like you said, take a playbook and run it across a bunch of different verticals. You'd have to know, well, like Hormozy did, is he dialed in on just gyms and then
yeah,
he killed it consistently until he became the guy. That would make sense to me. Would be to,
yeah.
like you said, being laundromat guy, becoming, winning to such a consistent level that another laundromat looks at you and goes, it's worth you've demonstrated that, as opposed to roofer plus a content creator plus a all the stuff that I've messed around with the agencies that I was a part of. Yeah, it's hard to make a playbook run an agnostic playbook. So that's where I see an opportunity for marketers in the future. And maybe
Yeah,
marketing isn't the full-time thing, or brand building or copywriting or creating, but not just going deep in a niche, but being able to so deeply understand the niche that you're also ready to commit to it for the long term, and they can commit to you. And it's like making a hire
yeah,
and a friendship.
yeah, yeah. I think there's definitely something there, though. I think that that is probably not going to continue to be what it like. I think that works in a global economy where you can literally work with every roofer in the world that, I don't know, has a business at a certain level. Like your TAM has to be huge. And I think that we're actually coming to the end of globalization as an era, and we're going to be moving into a time where regional and balkanization is more important?
Say more. That's really interesting. And we'll close with this thought like, why balkanization? That's interesting.
Because of what I said about trust. Like, trust is really going to become increasingly more important as the structures. I mean, this is a massive, like, geopolitical, global kind of thing that I've been thinking about and studying. So it's going to be hard to, like, articulate as a closing statement. But
Yeah, you got 30 seconds. Hit it.
I think that like, we've tested out how does globalization really work, and turns out not super well, because different cultures have different values, different ways of doing business, different languages about business, different ways of viewing what is a contract, what is a negotiation, like, and I think that, like, what we see in the rise of nationalism is a, like, rejection of, hey, everyone is a homogenous kind of individual atom. It's like, no, we are people, and we want to, like, be able to still have that kind of sense of this is how we do things. Iceland is like a place where there is no trash anywhere that you go, and that's not because of the law, it's because of their culture. They don't have billboards, they don't have music in the grocery stores. Like, they're a very unique culture, radically different from Indian culture, which there's trash everywhere, but their music is amazing. I'm not saying it's necessarily better or worse, but, like, those two cultures are going to have a different way of engaging with each other that needs to be honored. So, like, I think that I'm a part of the Catholic kind of ecosystem, and part of the reason why I'm there is because I think it's a high trust network where, like, yes, people are assholes sometimes. Yes, like, there's a breakdown in, like, the way people treat each other, but, like, there are still handshake deals. I'm working with clients where, like, they could very easily screw me over because we don't have a signed contract, but they really needed to get work moving faster. Only reason I can do that is because high trust. So I think that trust is becoming more and more important as trust breaks down in
Layer
other
on top of
places.
that, yeah. So apart from the cultural thing, I think also stuff like deepfakes
Yeah, right.
and
Yep.
generated content. Like for me, I can see it way faster than a lot of other people do. And it's very cool on one level. And on another level, it's like, I think this is another reason why live, like actual in person creators
Right.
and in person engagement is going to increase because
Right.
we just need that confirmation. Am I dealing with a genuine, real human being?
Right.
And this is where I think going back to that face to face, having tools help us reclaim that sense of our humanity. I think they will win. They'll also live better lives, more satisfied human lives. You will have some people who will win despite everything, but hey, we've always done that. They've always had scammers and whatever.
So I guess all
Man,
that to say is, I think that hyper specialization is probably not the future for creatives. I think that it is understanding principles and knowing how to work from those principles to a solution in almost any ambiguous situation. I think that's the future.
hi there. If that was interesting to you, please let me know. Drop a comment below sharing what you think. If you've got a question for a follow-up video, I'd love to make that for you. What I've also done is taken some of the key talking points in the notes from this conversation, put them in a little guide or a takeaway, and I put the link in the description. You can go get that right now, and maybe it'll be helpful to you. I am trying to build a community here on YouTube and on Substack, and you're welcome to come and hang out and DM me your questions. I'd love to hear from you. Now, if you did enjoy this video, you might really enjoy going a bit deeper. In fact, actually, a heck of a lot deeper with another friend where I sat down with him to continue this in depth line of thinking around AI, how it can be really positive, what the potential is, and how it can get really dark and why it's problematic, but also it's like a really, really fascinating time to be alive. He works in parish ministry, and he's been using it since day one. And so it was just kind of a geek fest about how the tool is really interesting. And we even get all the way back into ancient Egypt and how a tool like this is a way to almost ensure that we don't get trapped again by massive pressure from huge companies. Now, we'll have to see if that continues to happen or not. But if you enjoyed this conversation, I think you're going to enjoy this next one. So go ahead and give that a watch.